All right, I'd like to go ahead and call the Manchester Community Schools Board of Trustees regular meeting to order. I'd like to welcome the visitors. Thanks for being with us tonight on this sunny night. And then let's have the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We've just been trying to make some of the invisible structures visible with our norms out there. So we're going to focus on and attend to the task at hand. We're concentrating on being aware of our presence on the room. I think the best boards perfect this dance of knowing when to step up and step back. There's a time to speak and a time to listen. And finally, the one that I really struggle with is we're going to expect and accept a lack of closure. A lot of times, board business does not happen at the rate of a speed train. It sometimes takes some time to work through, and time can be our friend. So those are our norms that we will be working on tonight. Are there any agenda additions or deletions?
Yes, Board President. We actually typed them up for each board member, so you should have a copy. Item number 1 is basically under personnel, and it's Alicia Compton, and it's not a leave of absence, but it will be a resignation, and the effective date is the same. The second item is under personnel, and it's Mike Stephen. He's going to the Nationals in Oklahoma, and I don't think it indicated that they were going to the Nationals. That's the only change there. And then the last item is Lisa Swartz, and her background check cleared today, so she's good to go.
I'm sorry, with all due respect, I've got to be
I don't need a motion, do I? All right. Any other agenda deletions?
Yeah, could we pull the, I don't have it in front of me, from the consent agenda, the first executive meeting, the minutes, put that as a separate item, please. February 12th.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, then. Are there any public comments on agenda items? Please use the mic. And smile. You're being webcasted.
Now, y'all would miss me if I didn't get up and say something. Mary Earl, and I didn't say anything in the last meeting, so see, I'm going to make up here. I noticed that you were going to discuss the Senate Bill 1004, so I looked it up. And it has a lot of important stuff in there that could change our things that we do. It talks about certifying to the Department of Homeland Security a threat assessment for each building and a date you have to do that. I hope this means that the school board will finally have a professional security audit done by either a company or by Homeland Security. It also talks about the purchase of other equipment to enhance school safety. I wish that meant that you would do have the use of the hand wands approved and start using those. The main thing I saw that it talks about one way to safety is combat truancy. And I looked up the 2018 annual performance report, and for the junior-senior high school, there were 204 students who missed more than 10 unexcused days. There was 117, or 15.58% of the students, that missed more than 10% of last year's school. And I think those are a couple things you need to address.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? All right then, consent items, Mr. Michael?
Yes, we will start out and we will pull the February 12th out of the consent group, and we'll address that individually. So I looked for a motion.
For the minutes of February 12th, 2019?
Yes.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
It's a motion by Mr. Hensley. Is there a second?
If he wants to pull that, what is he? Is this to approve him or pull that?
All right, so if there's not a
Pull it out.
second, what do I do?
The motion dies.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll second it.
You'll second it?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was focusing on something.
Okay, so there's been a motion by Mr. Hensley and a second by Mr. Turflinger. Is there any discussion? Then all of those in, oh,
I'm confused.
Why
Why
are
we pulling them?
Why are we pulling February 12th?
Oh, was that a motion to pull it or approve them?
no, the motion was to approve the February 12th. So I think what Mr. Turflinger asked for us to do is instead of approving all 9 of the consent items, he wants to have consent item 1, the minutes of February 12th, to be a separate motion and second and approval from
And so his
item
motion
2
was-
through 9.
His motion was to approve it?
Yes.
That was my understanding.
Okay.
Is that what you were intending? Yeah, so we have a motion by Mr. Hensley to approve the February 12th, 2019 executive session meetings, a second by Mr. Turflinger.
Draw my second then, I thought we were motioning to take it out.
Okay, so we're back to having a motion by Mr. Hensley to approve the February 12th, 2019 executive session meeting. Is there a second?
If you second it, it gets us to the discussion part. Then I'll second.
All right, so a second by Mr. Vanderpool. Is there discussion?
Yes.
Well, I hope so. Why are we removing it?
I don't want to vote no on the whole consent agenda, I just want to vote no on these minutes.
So I thought I made a motion to approve. Okay, other than that,
So we're good to go. You made a motion to approve it, he seconded it, now we've had our discussion, now we just do a vote. Move to the next thing.
If discussion is finished, we will.
Yes.
Is there any other discussion?
Nope.
All right, so all those in favor of approving minutes of February 12th, vote yes.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 4-1. Did I do the math right? Yeah, 4-1. And now I need an approval for the consent agenda items 2 through 9.
So moved.
Thank you. So we have a move. Mr. Bedke has moved approval. Do we have a second?
Sure.
Second by Mr. Turflinger. Any discussion? All those in favor of approval of consent items 2 through 9? Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Now we move on to the claims. We have regular claims dated April 9th, prepaid claims, and then the payroll claims. Also, we didn't have any grants at this point in time. Donations, we had $6.63 to the Manchester Junior High School Squire Team Production Services Film Club from various donors. $300 to the Manchester Student Activities Account from an anonymous donor. A donation of $100 to the Manchester Junior Senior High FFA program from Keith Metzger. $100 to Manchester FFA program from Priscilla Metzger. $150 donation to Manchester Athletic Program from an anonymous donor. $200 to Manchester Junior Senior High Track Program, anonymous donor. Donation of $200 to the Boys Basketball Program, anonymous donor, and $700 to the Manchester Junior Senior High Student Activities anonymous donor, and a donation of $1,000 to the Manchester Junior Senior High Science Olympiad program from Eric and Jennifer Reinbach. Personnel, we have elementary, we have Jennifer Meredith. It's a long-term music sub for the remainder of the year. Leave of absence, Yolanda Burdette, cook. And then in the intermediate school, we have Haley Franklin, intramural soccer coach. Manchester Junior Senior High, we have employment recommendations of Steve Sulkey, junior high assistant track coach, Brittany Watson, assistant softball coach, Tracy Michael, instructional assistant, Hunter Bosch, math teacher. For next year, Lisa Swartz, night custodian, Stacy Clark, head JV baseball coach. Resignations, we have Richard Kelsheimer, night custodian. Leave of absence, Rhonda Bright, special ed teacher. And a chaperone, Mike Stevens, a volunteer chaperone for the FFA trip to the Nationals. At the central office, we have employment of Melissa Walt, executive secretary, and she'll start here in April 25th. Daphne Steele, bus driver, effective March 22nd. Alicia Compton, resignation, bus aide. Teresa Smith, effective March 18th, and that's a retirement. And last is Deb Bonter, a bus driver, effective May 24th, after 26 years. So I look for your approval.
Is there a motion to approve the consent items? The remaining consent items?
Sure.
So a motion by Mr. Turflinger. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Bedke. Is there discussion? All those in favor of approval? Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. New business, Mr. Michael.
If you recall, we were looking at policy number 1060, and that deals with the board meetings, and basically we have struck the 5:30. We had a opportunity for discussion. We agreed to scratch it or pull it out. We brought it back at the last board meeting for a first reading, and I'm bringing it back to you for a second reading and approval this evening.
Is there a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we strike it.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I think the motion is for approval, second reading with approval.
Okay.
Okay, so a motion by Mr. Turflinger and a second by Mr. Vanderpool. Is there discussion?
So this policy just removes the time and it just leaves it open-ended?
Yes.
That the board can determine year to year what time they want to start the meeting?
Yes, we do that the first meeting of the year,
Yep, okay,
January meeting. Just gives you more flexibility.
right.
Okay, then, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. The Manchester Youth Volleyball Tournament, Dr. Lippy.
Okay, so we're seeking permission to use the facility on April 14th for a youth tournament. They kind of do this as a round robin, so each school takes their turn, and therefore you get to play at other schools. So we're taking our turn of hosting on April 14th, and in return, our kids will get to play at other facilities throughout the spring. So that's what we're asking for your approval to kind of help our youth volleyball club.
Is there a motion for approval?
Yeah, I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Vanderpool. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And a second by Mr. Hensley. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Michael.
We had a request to put House Bill 104 on the agenda for discussion. I believe Mr. Hensley requested that. So we have pulled, you can see it's dated 4/8 of 19, which is very recent. The significance of the bill and on the safety, school safety side. And also you will see a second dated 4/9, so you can see how things change rather quickly. And you can see it deals with the secured school grant. I guess the question I have is, what questions do you have in this regard?
Well, my question was, I'm an advocate for a full-time mental health, some type of resource within the school or some partnership further than Bowen Center. And so when I read that, I see that, you know, a couple things have changed where some monies could be moved from more SOR, you know, safety monies towards mental health, and that's what I've heard is we don't have the money for mental health assistance, and I'll go back to my comments earlier in meetings that I'd like to see either a full-time or at least a part-time mental health associate in the school system to work along with Nate Birch. We don't, you know, Nate does a great job, I think, as an SRO officer. But at the same time, we've got, you know, there's another gender in this school that may not be comfortable with the male. And so I think, you know, having both components of that's in very good interest for our students, our teachers, and our administration. So that's my discussion point. And I'd like to know, is there what is the thought behind those monies? There's $5 million in additional funds added to that fund. Is anyone in the administration working on anything like that? And who's responsible for that?
I can speak to the SRO piece. That is part of the secured funds, Indiana Secured Funds grant that we received. It's a matching grant. Last year it was a $30,000 grant, and we had to match that $30,000. So it's like a $60,000 total, which could only be used for SROs at this time. Obviously, this legislation could potentially change that, where you could use some of the monies for mental health assistance. Trying to get more clarification if that's going to be an and an or just an or. Can you use those funds for SRO and mental health, or does it have to be one or the other? I know that they've asked to increase that fund from, I think it's been 15 million to 20 million. And then today we just saw where there's some thought where maybe they're not going to approve the additional 5 million coming up this week later for a vote. So contact your local legislators to get that additional 5 million, because if we don't get the additional 5 million and they keep things in the House bill the way it's written, the potential is there that less schools will get the grant, because they've increased the funding of those grants. And there's a lot of talk in the House bill itself where the funding may be dictated on your size of your school, how much you're eligible for, and then what the matching grant would be. Based on what's written in here, we would be eligible for $50,000, but we would have to match that $50,000, 100%, where there's smaller schools wouldn't have to match the 100%. It's a smaller percentage. So there's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts still with this piece of legislation that we're going to obviously keep our eye on, because it definitely could impact us, because we will have to apply for the new grant to even have a chance to have our SRO return. So having a piece of that grant is really important for us. So, but yeah, we're definitely watching it and keeping our eye on it, along with a lot of those legislative pieces that can affect us.
On that SRO grant, we had 2, and then Greg left. Yep. So is any of that money going to carry over, or do we just lose it at the end of the year?
Yeah, we basically lose it. What we do is what we're spending, we have to submit to the DOE to get refunded back those monies. So we can spend up to the 30,000. It'll be whatever we spend, even if we only spend out of the 60,000, 40,000, 20 of it will come back to us from the DOE, and 20 will come out of our general fund that we had to match. So yeah, unfortunately we can't carry it forward.
Thank you.
And part of putting that on the agenda is to explain what's going on, number one, and we're also webcasting, so part of that's to the public to get on your phones and call your legislators exactly what you just said there, so
Sure.
Thank you for the update.
And that was the reason we included the 4-9 information, because it talks about, there's some speculation, has it that the Indiana Senate Republican Caucus is considering removing the needed funding from the state budget. So there's some serious consideration of taking that $5 million and pulling it from the budget. So that would definitely impact the thought.
Now, just to remind the public, legislators work for us, so thank you.
Could we put this up on our website so that folks watching, whatever, can get to this
Sure.
and call
Yeah.
in?
It changes though.
Well, it
But
changes
hopefully
every-
within the next week or so, we'll have a better idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but we can put it up there.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Yes.
All right, then we are up to administration updates and reports, starting with the principal's reports.
I want to start out by publicly thanking a couple of my teachers who stepped up big time for me. My grade level chairs, Heather Turflinger, Tammy Allen, and Nancy Hanback, as well as Brenda Yoakum for our academic excellence program. I had a slight medical emergency, spent a little time not being here where I could be. So I appreciate them stepping up and taking care of that. Making sure that that went well to recognize our students. I passed out. It's hard to believe we are seven weeks from the end of the year, less than 7 weeks now. So I put together our end of the year schedule for MIS. There are a couple, I think there's just one question mark yet on there. I haven't finalized something, but I wanted the board to have that. I'll just highlight a couple of the things that are going on here that we have going on at MIS for the rest of the year. Inviting you, if you see some of these events that look interesting, stop in and see those. But this week we have 4th grade doing swimming lessons. We've got an e-learning day. Our last one is this Saturday, so we hope that's our last one. We are doing a SCAN is coming and doing a presentation on the body safety program. That got canceled earlier. The DCS comes in and does that. They were not able to reschedule the speaker, so we were able to work that out with SCAN, and that's something we wanted to do. SCAN is an organization, it's out of Fort Wayne, it's Stop Child Abuse and Neglect. So they're providing a free program to our students. So on personal safety, so that will be on April 18th. We're going to have a parent meeting on April 16th. They will be at MES on the 17th. So we're doing that K through 6. Coming up, starting April 22nd through May 17th, we have the iLearn testing window, and that is going to be an interesting test. There are lots of things we like about it, some changes we've made that the state has made. There are also some things that are a little bit nerve-wracking. When this test is no longer timed, so trying to create a schedule to have students take these tests, and I was going to add up each test. We're taking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 tests, and all of them take somewhere between an hour and 2 hours per test. So that's recommended time. Some students could take twice that amount. So they're not going to be, we've always said we didn't want students pushed, not finishing the test, but now we're going to live with what we wanted. which is, how long does it take a student to take that test? And now, fortunately, they're allowing us to take breaks, and it may be lunch, and we may have to stop the test and give part of it the next day, and those types of things. But so we are going to be working on that, and once again, it's a learning curve on this. Let's see, April 25th, 4th grade's going to Indianapolis. That's part of a grant they received to go down to the Speedway, and then we will come through town. We will stop at the State House. We've done that in the past, and give the students an opportunity to be there. Grandparents' Day is May 3rd. So if you want to come out and see, in the past we've had right around 500 grandparents show up for Grandparents' Day. We turn our field into a giant parking lot, and it's really neat to see the support of families. Those are the days that you realize why we have such a neat thing going in this community when you've got that many grandparents representing the kids. So, we've got about 380 students, and we've got 500 grandparents there. So it's something that's really neat to see. So if you're out there that day. That night, our reading program, we've got students going to the Tin Caps game. 5th grade on May 7th will be going to Ball State, down to the museum there, as well as doing a tour of campus. The 6th grade on May 9th is going to come to Manchester University. 5th grade on May 10th is going to Biztown in Fort Wayne. That's part of the Junior Achievement Program. Then May 13th and 14th is our big Camp Crosley trip. With 6th grade, that's the overnight field trip. 4th grade will be going to Charlie Creek on the 14th. We've got a choir concert on the 15th. Let's see. 5th and 6th grade band will be in concert here on the 17th. We'll have our field day. 6th grade always they do a math carnival where it's a probability carnival. If you want to, that's something that's really neat to see the 6th grade math students do that. They create all these carnival games out of cardboard, and they've got to calculate the probability to make sure that they don't lose everything that they're gaining. So that's something neat to see. And then we are at last student day, awards program, and the 6th grade graduation on May 24th. So the end will come rushing up quickly, but I just kind of wanted to highlight these things. We always kind of make a list and check them off as we go. But so no, we got a lot of things going on here at the end of the year.
Thanks, Mr. Self.
Just looking at a quick summary of some of the things that have gone on over the last month. Just an absolutely unbelievable production of Wizard of Oz. I want to thank Jennifer Reichenbacher, cast and crew. Kathy Hawkins was a big help. Just on and on. And so, unbelievable. It was amazing. The talent of our students and our professionals that work with those students is amazing. Academic excellence went well. That's the week before spring break. We recognized nearly 150 students, 7th through 12, and you bucked that up with Randy's group at MIS. It was just another strong showing by our students, and certainly one of the highlights of the year. We had some strong JAG results from the state 2 weeks ago. We had 6 JAG students compete, and 5 of those students came away with top 3 finishes in the state of Indiana. So great job by Mr. Butler and the JAG program. We want to wish again congratulations to our Science Olympiad team for a strong finish at the state finals. Sue Janegi, Tony Miller, Jenna Smith, along with countless parents, kids that were over here every night after school for weeks on end. The top 36 teams across the state of Indiana competed. Our B team finished 10th, C team finished 16th. That's in the state. That's just and at all levels. I mean, size of school, throw that out the window. Like, we competed with absolutely everybody. And just another special thank you to Sue Janegi for all of her years of service. She had indicated early on that this would be her final season, and so Sue, we'll miss you, and certainly if you have second thoughts, let us know. We'd love to have you back. So also this coming Friday, just looking ahead a little bit, we have our 7th and 8th grade honor parole program. It's an unbelievable list of students still, and so traditionally what you'll see is, you know, kids come in fresh out of the summer, and you expect to, you know, kids kind of get this revitalized, like, I'm going to do it. So they stick it first quarter, and you have high numbers at first quarter, but our third quarter numbers are just as high as what first and second quarter. So bravo to those kids, bravo to the teachers that are working with those kids. And so we'll recognize those students this Friday morning with donuts and a certificate. And so they're real excited about to get the donuts. So we'll make sure we have those again. I-Step 10 got started today. Again, I-Step 10 is kind of bringing to a close. We still have a couple grade groups that will come through I-Step 10. No hitches. Thank you to Tony Miller, his crew. You know, a few years ago when we adopted the Chromebook, we weren't sure if that was going to be a very good testing device. And now, after a few years under our belt, I can tell you with a resounding, it's been fantastic. And so I know that's something we're going to be looking at maybe next month, maybe looking at, again, like what do we want to do? And so from our perspective, from a testing perspective, from a one-to-one device, we're seeing good things, and we're hearing good things back from our students and our teachers and our parents. So I-Step 10, thanks again. And we still have a few more days of that yet this week. I-Learn is coming up again for the first time, as Randy said, in a few weeks. We've got our 7th and 8th grade students that will take the I-Learn, while I-Step 10 is still in 10th grade. We want to wish our band and choir good luck this actually Thursday and Friday. ISMA contest, Northridge and Goshen. So good luck to you guys. And also all of our spring sports are now in full bloom, and it's hard to believe how fast spring goes, and we'll be talking about graduation here in another month. It's a very, very full couple months, and a very exciting time. If you're around, please stop by, see some of the sports teams that are about every night. You can find somebody doing something. So thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Janegi.
I want to start by just extending condolences to Mrs. Corris on the passing of her grandmother. That's why she's not here this evening. And I know she was an extended caregiver for her grandmother, and so just remember her as she's out for a few days. As far as curriculum and instruction goes, about 2 weeks ago, we received notice that we were awarded 2 Indiana Department of Education grants. One of them was for a high-ability curriculum writing summer boot camp that will happen the week of June 3rd with Professor Kurt Kurtzals facilitating that. That provides stipends for up to 20 teachers to work with Professor Kurtzals to kind of ramp up our high-ability curriculum. We definitely see the need to get that in line, and we think this is a great opportunity for that. The other grant was a digital learning grant. The department focuses that grant on something specific. This time it was STEM and project-based learning, which was fortunate for us because that's kind of what we wanted to focus on. And so we were awarded the first grant, the high ability grant, was $57,500, and the digital learning grant was $40,227. The digital learning grant also provides some stipends for summer curriculum work, as well as some actual modules and units of study for us. The next exciting thing came when I received an email from Candace Dodson at the DOE inviting grant recipients to a brainstorming session this Thursday. So Jabin Burnworth and I are headed to Indianapolis, and they are very interested in what we're doing in our K-3 STEM, and I'm certainly happy to talk about that. And so that will be the highlight for us to go down and share that information. They're looking to see how STEM can be implemented in the elementary school, and they were interested in our model. We actually, I think, reported earlier that we had a DOE person come in October, and she really liked what she saw. So excited about that. Other than that, as far as professional development goes, you know, our teachers are busy during the school year, but they always seem to find time in the summer to do some professional development. So we encourage them to explore things. The Lead Learners has national speakers coming in, and that's kind of like the best professional development in our own backyard because that's in Warsaw. And so we encourage our teachers to do that or to find something else that kind of gives them that shot in the arm so they can get ready to go back to school the next year. So that's kind of from the world of curriculum and instruction. Do you have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Sue, thanks for all your work on those grants. It's a big deal. MTA.
I'm actually going to be giving a report tonight. We weren't sure with the baby and a band concert tonight if I was going to be able to. So thank Mrs. Slofkin for filling in. The weeks after spring break are always a sprint to the end for teachers. Starting with I-STEP this week for grade 10, there is actually some form of state assessment, AP exam, final exam, or other formal assessment occurring basically every week till the end of the school year. That's how testing is in today's schools. So that means that this is the prime time for teachers and classes to get in those last minute standards or lessons they may not have missed and review those big standards, the key standards, and prepare for them. This also happens to be one of the busiest times, as I know you've heard Mr. Self talking about all the stuff happening at MIS. I can tell you, and anybody who has tried to schedule anything at the high school can tell you that May is just an unbelievable month for events occurring. So if you haven't been to very many things at the high school, there is an athletic event or another event occurring basically every single school night and weekend during the month of May. So encourage you to take the chance and take that opportunity to get in there and see some of those positive things. I had to laugh. I had somebody not that long ago say something about not many things happening at our school, and I couldn't believe that. I mean, if you've seen the schedule, it's ridiculous. So I have to set my Google Calendar settings just so I can see my personal appointments on the school calendar. I do want to take a moment, and the state legislature session is wrapping up. It's entering its final phase here, and there's a couple of things that I wanted to bring to our board's attention tonight. This year, ISTA called it cautious optimism at the beginning of the session, and it's becoming very frustrating at this point. Some things that you should be aware of and may know already is that with the current state budget proposal, Manchester is projected to keep pace with inflation and actually get ahead possibly. And we are unfortunately the minority. In the schools in our area, half of them lose funding one, if not both years in the next 2 years under the current budget. So there's a lot of frustration. And our teachers feel, very fortunate, and it's very nice that Manchester, we're all in the same boat here, and it's not the teachers or, one group. It's everybody. It's the school board and the administrators and the teachers all feeling and working hard at it. We've made a lot of really good strides here. But our teachers do feel that frustration of teachers around the state, and that there's an opportunity here that just feels like it's being wasted. And then also last week there were some amendments made to some bills. One in particular that the Teachers Association, the School Board Association, and the Administration Association came out against. But continues to be advanced. So we would urge you to, if you haven't been paying much attention, maybe read up a little bit on some of the things that are being pushed forward right here at the end, and let our representatives know. I know that a group of teachers from Beconicqua met with Senator Zay today to talk to him about some of their concerns. We really appreciate here at Manchester what we've been able to accomplish together, and I know teachers around the state are just frustrated and would like to see our state legislatures be able to work together like local school boards have been able to with their teachers. And so I just wanted to put that out in front of you and make you aware, and thank you for your work with us and the administrators for their work with us.
Thanks, Mr. Huber. Mr. Markham?
Yeah, just a couple quick things. Just wanted to let you know that we did receive our tax anticipation warrant money, and so that's been deposited. We got that right before spring break, the $1 million tax anticipation warrant. So that'll definitely help with our cash flow balance. And then also the DLGF approved our additional appropriation that you approved last meeting for the debt service fund, and that came through this week that they approved that. So those two items are taken care of, and appreciate your diligence in those items.
Thank you. Mr. Michael.
Couple things. First of all, you have a handout, a laydown based on policy development and maintenance process. Was brought up at the last board meeting whether this was on my radar. And I'm trying to be somewhat sensitive to the board in your time. I know you're trying to find a new superintendent, and I'm aware of the time and effort that takes. But you will notice this was back in February the 26th when I put this together. This is my vision as far as we could go through Neola, but we could spend a heck of a lot of money keeping it updated. And I can show you a binder that Neola has, and it's long and lengthy, really cumbersome. I like your policy manual. It's very simple and I think easy to work with. First of all, we'd have to, and I just kind of outlined the process. First of all, we'd have to organize a committee, and I put Mr. Markham in charge of that as a chairperson. His desk is entirely too clean. No, he's very detail-oriented, and I think would fit that position very well. We'd like to have a building administrator on that committee, a safety specialist, since that's a major issue here in the last few years. We'd like to have an MTA representative work with us. Corporation attorney, it's always a good idea to have the school attorney review the policies, make sure that they do fit, and so forth, and then of course the superintendent. And here their purpose and goal is to review and update the policy manual, and bring recommendations to the board. And we go through the process of a first reading, and then we go through a second reading with approval. And of course, if we can't get it done in 2 readings, we'll go to the third. But we give you the opportunity to, at least that we've had a variety of input from a variety of areas. Secondly, the committee would review the current policy manual. We are missing some required policies. I've received a copy of required policies from the ISBA. They have that list, and that would be one of the first things we'd have to go into the current policy manual and make sure that, and fill in the gaps, find out what those gaps are, and then begin to develop policies to fill those gaps. Third, identify the missing policies and place each policy in the manual. Fourth, compare the policies in the manual to the list. They also have a recommended list of policies, so it's not required by law, but then again, highly recommended. We'd have to look at, the committee would have to look at to see which ones we're in need of to fill in with. And then fifth, prior to board adoption, all policies should be given for legal review, and that's the reason Mark is a part of our committee. Sixth, the committee would bring the recommendations to the board, and here again, that would be for a first reading. The next meeting would be the second reading and hopefully adoption. And then there's the maintenance side to that. Once we fill in the gaps, we want to maintain what we have, and the laws do change, and they change on a fairly regular basis, and that's one of the most difficult things to do. And districts that I've gone into, their policy manual's usually outdated, hasn't been touched and reviewed in years, and that's unfortunate. So I did include a schedule for review and revision, and I'm thinking this spring and probably summer we can look at filling those gaps, getting the required recommended policies in there, and then the school year of 2019 and 20, we could look at sections 1 and 2 and have the committee review that to see if there are any changes, anything that is outdated that needs to be taken care of. And then in 2020, 2021, we will look at sections 3 and 4, same thing. Now, if we have a policy that's in section 2 and we're in the second year, we'll go back to section 2 and we'll make that correction and bring it to the board, because we want to make sure, but we would definitely review, have a process in place for that review to take place. On the back, 21, 22, sections 5 and 6, and then here again, in 22, 23, we'd start over for sections 1 and 2. So it'd be about a 3-year cycle, but then again, we can go in at any time to make that change. That's basically how I see it happening, and I just want you to be aware of the process that we'll be using to bring those to you. So it's more information than anything I've left out.
3 years is the recommended, I read that somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Is the recommended
Yep.
cycle for this?
Yeah,
So,
that makes it very doable.
right. So you need a motion?
Nope, I just want you to be aware of what we're doing. That way, when we start bringing things to you, you have a background and you know what we've gone through to get to this point.
Okay.
And secondly and lastly, the board gave me the responsibility to come back to you with a building project proposal from the administration, and I'm near the end. So I would like you and encourage you to look at your calendars, and I would like to do that in a special session, an hour of your time. Look at that, and then I'll work through Ruth as far as setting that up and getting that taken care of. I think I have some good options for you, narrowed down, and I think good use of money. Get the best bang for your buck, in my opinion, and the administrators have been very cooperative, and they've given me a lot of good insight, and we've had some good discussion over the whole process. So look at your calendars, and I work with Ruth to set that special session up here soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Michael. Mr. Turflinger?
Yeah, Heartland Career Center Board met and we approved another new home for next year. Anyone that's interested, on May 16th, they're gonna have an open house at the one that they built this year. And on May 22nd, is graduation at the Honeywell Center. I'm missing a piece of paper. I misplaced it. I had the dates for the Community Foundation scholarships for the Heartland Career Centers, and I don't know what I did with it, but they're going to be passing out 9 individual scholarships that night, and plus the Vincennes and the Iowa Tech scholarships. A lot of good things happening down here. Good.
Thank you. Mr. Michael?
Yes, the board study guide, if you don't object, I'll just simply summarize quickly and we can move on. Basically, we're looking at the president's legal authority, and she has the authority to call these meetings, lead these meetings, conduct the meetings, whether it's an open public meeting, whether it's an exec session, special session, from that standpoint. And I'll be quite honest with you, I think Ruth has done a great job. Being a first-year president is not always an easy chore, and I know she's learned a lot and working hard at it, and I think she is showing great leadership, especially through the search for the superintendent. It takes a lot of time and effort, and so I congratulate her and compliment her on that process. We can talk about the open door law. There's only certain things that we can, we have to follow certain policies and so forth, and that's the reason Mark is here at the board meetings and any meeting that we have to make sure that we don't stray into an area that we shouldn't. And so he kind of holds us in where we need to be. Of course, we have to have minutes of the meetings, whether they're public meetings, exec sessions, whatever. And we have to notify, so you will see advertising and in the paper outside the area of the meeting, and those are all requirements of the law. And that's pretty much it as far as we're structured around the law as far as what we can do, as far as board meetings and that type of thing. So, thank you.
Anybody else have anything that you highlighted or wanted to say about that section? All right. Thank you, Mr. Michael.
Thank you.
All right, so we are, if there's any comments from visitors. Just go ahead and head up to the mic and tell us your name.
Good evening, my name is Gabriel Case, and I am a freshman at the high school. I'm mainly here tonight to let you know that you're going to receive a proposal for a possible new club at Manchester centered around rock climbing. As you may know, rock climbing is a growing sport and may appeal to students who are not attracted to typical high school sport offerings. Rock wall climbing is now even being considered for a position in the Summer Olympics. As some of you may have heard through sources such as the paper, Southwood High School has recently acquired a 46-foot high outdoor rock climbing wall called Unger Mountain, and it has invited the county schools as well as Huntington to bring a team of 10 rock climbers, ideally 5 boys and 5 girls, to the first ever competition, which will be held on Saturday, May 18th. They're also offering 2 practices earlier that week, coached by their fully trained staff. Mr. Burnworth, who has volunteered to be the coach/chaperone, and myself are currently in the process of recruiting for this, as long, of course, as the school board approves it. When you receive our proposal in the next week or so, I ask that you consider it carefully. It'll contain a lot of specific safety information so that you know that it will be a safe school activity. Manchester and the other included schools in Wabash County and Huntington have an opportunity to be the first schools in Indiana to ever do something like this. Depending on how this event goes, we hope it'll happen again. Thank you for your time.
Any other comments from visitors? Comments and questions from board members?
I have a question for Russ. Any update on the roof?
As far as,
The estimates, trying to get it fixed?
we got a couple estimates. The latest one was $672,000, which is well below the $1 million that they projected, but that's one of them. And then I also have from the specialty technology specialist here in Urbana on some of the technology for some of the vestibules and that type of thing. We have to do some upgrading to be able to accomplish that. But I'll share all that information. We actually have estimates on that as well.
Thank you.
Gabe, we're really grateful for your comments. Thank you for being innovative, and we really appreciate that you came and spoke. I can't speak for the board on this, but I can for me. My very favorite people that get up there at the mic are students, and we just love to hear from them. So thank you so much for taking some time and coming. It was very well presented, so thank you. I also just wanted to give an update of the superintendent search. So we are through first round interviews. We have invited 2 candidates to return, and they will be here for a really in-depth second interview. And so next week they will be here. Last night we met in a work session and really hashed out what that is. And I just think that the board is doing really due diligence to find not just a qualified candidate, but a candidate that fits and fits well. And so next week we will be working through that. The second round interviews on 2 separate days because they're intense. And then we will select, hopefully have our top pick selected soon, and then go through the process of a bunch of stuff that Mark understands, and I will do what he says to follow that through. So that's kind of where we are. That's not kind of where we are. That is where we are. And in the second round, there'll be more input from more staff. I think that you'll find. So thank you for hanging out with us while we go through that process. All right, and if there are no other comments or questions, we're going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Have a great evening. Enjoy the sunshine.
Okay.